This is radicalization. A man in Seattle has been arrested by the feds for threatening to blow up Portland police station, and he espouses Antifa beliefs. One of the reasons the media likes to scream, there's no such thing as Antifa, it just means anti-fascist. That way, when lunatics who actually post the flags, the symbols, and avow their allegiance to the ideology, they argue he's just a regular guy and Antifa is not responsible for any real terror or violence. There have been instances where individuals have taken other people's lives and they have been Antifa. And there have been instances where individuals have physically harmed other people and they're avowed Antifa as well. And the media likes to lie about this. One of the things they like to do is claim that the right is being radicalized. When you actually have the feds having to come in and make dozens of arrests, now I think in Portland, probably over 100 plus arrests to deal with the extremism coming from the left. So I'll ask you a question before we get into all these stories. How many right-wing extremists have been arrested recently? Maybe some. There are some stories. There's a guy who went online and posted threats. Absolutely. He called himself like the Antifa hunter or something. Sure. There are people on the right who have planned things. They've been arrested as well. I'm glad these people are being caught and brought to justice, because the truth is radicalization can go any direction. It can be up, down, left, right, whatever. You can become a religious fanatic. You can become a left wing. But what we see in terms of Antifa, the far left, and what's happening in Seattle and Portland is actually affecting governance in a very serious way. Now, this guy being arrested, I think, is an important story. We'll read this from the Post-Millennial. But take a look at this story from the Seattle Times. Private security hired by Seattle Parks after police cleared Cal Anderson. Chased away on first night. Okay, wait. The police were chased away from the Cal Anderson Park. That's where the Chaz was. So they hired a private security firm. Now there's no accountability. What are you going to do? Ask for records, file a lawsuit? This is what they wanted. The police have had to arrest hundreds of people. And in fact, in the George Floyd riots, over 14,000 people. You want to talk to me about the small handful of right-wing loonies on the internet getting arrested? You want to talk to me about the extremists who take loaded guns and go into buildings and do these things? I'm down to talk about all of that. Lock those people up all the same. So long as they have committed a crime, you've proven their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law, we go through due process. By all means, lock them up. 14,000 arrests so far. And I'm sure it's higher than that because it looks like people stopped counting. It's been going on for months. You want to talk to me about far left radicalization? 14,000 arrests. Is that enough for you? So when you come to my house, and I mean that figuratively, and say, Tim won't talk about the right. Well, we had a guy the other day, Antifa hunter, gets, posted dumb things online, gets arrested. I'm like, and? Is that what, like the 12th guy? How many people are there actually in the far right? The extremists. According to the ADL last count, it was like 10,000. And that's if you try and stretch it way out. Antifa, however, has regular people joining their ranks. They normalize it through the press, and you end up with dudes like this. From the Post-Millennial. A Seattle man who espoused support for Antifa causes has been arrested and federally charged for threatening to blow up a Portland police station with a bomb. Kyle Robert Tornow, 36, is accused of using an online communication system to claim he planted explosives at a Portland police station, according to U.S. Attorney Brian Moran in a Department of Justice press release Wednesday. Records filed in the case allege that Tornow used the city of Portland's Track IT system, which enables members of the public to create a user account and submit messages to the PPB on July 24th to send the bomb threat. Using the alias Chester Wildwood and his father's phone number, Tornow allegedly wrote, I'm not going to read what he wrote. He basically threatened, he explicitly threatened to bomb a police station. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was able to trace the communication back to Tornow using the IP address of the online threat. The criminal complaint also details Tornow's alleged social media post in a now deleted Facebook post. Tornow allegedly shared a graphic of the anarchist flag popular with Antifa. The accompanying text read, "You must be careful out there and follow black leadership. Anarchy does not mean chaos. It means community care and support." And it's the mom straightening the mask of the anarchist guy. In the criminal complaint written by the assigned FBI agent, she wrote, "Black bloc anarchist extremists believe the use of violent acts and threats are the only means of forcing their political and social change on the government and society." The Post-Millennial investigated a number of Reddit posts by Tornow. He wrote under several aliases. The posts over several years provide a fuller picture of the suspect. Responding to the question, how do you identify politically? In 2015, he said anarchist. Under another burner account in 2016, Tornow responded to a post about wealth inequality. Can we just figure out who these 1% people are and then kill them, he wrote. More recently, Tornow expressed support for Bernie Sanders in a post in March this year. I'd like to ask you, what is radicalization? Because I've talked about it quite a bit. And I'm going to throw it to good old Brian Stelter of CNN. See, Brian, he seems to know what he's talking about, sitting atop his ivory tower, not actually paying attention to what's happening in this country or online, and just making things up and writing books about it. C-SPAN caller confronts Brian Stelter. CNN is the enemy of truth. Stelter conceded that many journalists live in big cities and have liberal leanings. But what happens if you take an uber wealthy individual like Brian Stelter, who's working at CNN, and all he does is complain about Fox News for a living? Well, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So, of course, Stelter had this to say about a man who said CNN lies. I know you're not the only person that feels this way, Stelter said. There has been a process of radicalization that's happened in this country with media bashing that is absolutely unprecedented. Gee, Brian, have you ever stopped to ask yourself why that is? Now, I've stopped to ask why it is so many far leftists are being radicalized. And I believe there are a lot of reasons that are legitimately problematic for this country. Case in point, school loan debt. A bunch of dumb kids are told, take out $100K in debt, go to school, no guarantee for a job. What a terrible investment. They get out, they can't find work. They've been indoctrinated in this institutionalized learning facility. They're laden with debt. And along comes Bernie Sanders saying, you're suffering. There's no way out of the hole that's been dug around you. They don't take responsibility for their own actions, mind you. And he says, you know what? Let's have all those people help dig, shovel dirt in to lift you out of this hole. And they say, okay, there are real problems facing this country, and it leads to online radicalization of the far left. We need to properly educate people to prevent this. The problem is the media class in this country are plugging their ears and going, nah, 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 and blaming the people who are suffering for the problem. Are there conservatives who do the same? Sure, of course. Absolutely. But I will tell you this. When I saw a video earlier, CNN reported it, by the way. People are being evicted because of COVID. And I think we got a serious problem. People did not choose to lose their jobs. How do we solve this? It's not so cut and dry. I don't believe, based on the people I follow on the right, that many people on the right are actually saying, whoa, we got to stop this. This is bad. We got to solve this problem. It's like, yes, exactly. The left, however, ignores why people are fed up with the lies. And it's actually kind of ironic here that Brian would say this. When he dismisses this man who calls him out, he exemplifies perfectly why people are sick and tired of mainstream media and why they're more willing to go to people online because they don't hear what they're thinking. That no one is saying what needs to be said. Brian just says, quiet down, peasant, and let them eat cake. There's someone calling in saying you defamed a child. You are dividing our nation. And I don't believe in dividing our nation. It hurts our great nation. And so CNN is really the enemy of truth. That's my opinion. Thank you. And instead of saying something like we need to do better, the media needs to get a better foothold on what's happening. Instead of saying we missed it in 2016 because we weren't talking to regular people, he says, you've been radicalized. It's your fault. Well, we can see the news. It's not the regular working class individual saying, how do I feed my kids? Who's sending bomb threats and who for the past 5 years have been radicalized on social media. The radicalization on the left, ignored by the press, ignored by the likes of Brian Stelter, who now has like a number 5 best-selling book on the USA Today list because he's complaining about Fox News, ignores the real problem facing our country, the left radicalization. Now, like I mentioned, there are real reasons to be upset, but there's no check on this. So right now you see a video and it says, unarmed black man killed by cops. Immediately, everybody recoiled in horror, literally everyone, saying, wow, we need reform on this one. What did the left say? All right, let's go burn down all the cities. And, now 30 people are dead, 14,000 arrested. Those weren't conservatives doing it, man. A lot of regular people joined in the fun. That's the problem of radicalization on the left. They get a free pass. What did we see from Charlottesville? Yeah, there's radicalization in the other direction, but they are routinely crushed and demonized, and then they disappear. Steve King, I mentioned him several times, lost his primary. He's gone. You even dare approach radicalizing on the right, and they will end your career. You will be left destitute. They will do everything in their power. And you know why? Because the left and the right agree. Every regular person in this country agrees. Radicalization on the right is bad. But it seems like only moderates and right-wing individuals think radicalization on the left is bad. The left ignores it and normalizes it, and then they go and burn everything down. Then the police are demoralized, the police are shut down, the police quit, and they continue to do so. And then you get the dystopian nightmare. This is what you wanted, isn't it? The police have been defunded and scared, so what's going to happen? Private security comes in, and guess what? Private security doesn't care about your rights or laws. You got to watch these videos, man. Take a high-profile individual. I have seen videos of this. Trust me, it happens. Talk to security experts. A cop will try and stop a high-profile, wealthy individual. And guess what? Private security will shove that cop back and tell him to F off. They don't care. They get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those cops don't. And those guys know that if they end up getting arrested, they've got some of the best and wealthiest lawyers in the world who will make sure they get out. More importantly, they're loyal to those who they serve and protect. The private security guys will tell the police F off to protect their client. So what do you think comes next when you get rid of the police? The police can and will be held accountable. If a cop does something wrong, then people go after the cop. There's internal affairs. Is it perfect? No. Do we need to do better? Absolutely. The last thing I want to see, though, are private security companies that laugh in your face because you don't know who that guy is. You have no right to their records or documents. And they know that their clients got their back. Their company has their back. Think about it this way. You got a dude wearing a suit, earpiece, sunglasses, and he's standing with his arms crossed in front of some wealthy dude, and the cops come up and say, get out of our way. And they say, no, do something about it. Or they should ignore the cop and block his path. What's the cop going to do? Try to arrest him? Not only is the wealthy client paying the bills, but the company itself is paying the bills, and they got good lawyers. Here's a story from Seattle Times. After city crews cleared a camp of protesters and homeless people from Cal Anderson Park Tuesday, the Seattle Department of Parks and Recreation hired the private security firm Jaguar Security to have a presence in the park overnight and to continue to remind people that the park remains closed. A department spokesperson confirmed in an email Wednesday. Welcome to the privatization of police. It's everything the left asked for, huh? No. Of course it isn't. But it's really funny that the leftists who claim, who are more socialist or communist, for the most part, are actually creating a circumstance where the privatization of police will be normalized. Yeah. Wokeness and capitalism are not enemies. They're absolutely not. All these companies love the idea of wokeness. I've mentioned, you've heard get woke, go broke. There's also get broke, go woke. Companies seeing their revenue decline make desperate bids for wokeness to try and attract new clientele. There are many people who are woke who are willing to spend money on things simply because it supports their ideology. Hence the rainbow flag on every product, whether it makes sense or not. You put out private security, have them wave the special flag, whatever flag, and people are going to be like, yay! And then private security are going to be like, shut up. Unaccountable, unidentifiable private security. And they complain about secret police. This is the world they're creating. And it's because of the media ignoring the problem of radicalization on the far left. And it's because Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey and Susan Wojcicki, or whatever, I don't know how to pronounce her name. That's my bad. But it's because they allow far left radicalization. They allow these people to go on live streams and espouse their racist views. They write books that are best-selling books still to this day for months. Books by avowed racists on the top bestsellers list. Is Brian Stelter going to come out and say, we have a very serious problem when avowed racists write books and it becomes bestsellers in this country? No. And that's why people are getting fed up. And that's why they're turning against the media. We all see the story. A guy sending a bomb threat to a police department. Where's CNN? Oh, they'll talk about it all day and night when the Antifa hunter gets arrested. They'll talk about it all day and night when some right-wing dude gets arrested. Yes, and we all agree. But you know what? The Democrats and the left want to wield the power of their extremists. The only problem is the extremists are stronger than them, and they've been crushing the Democratic Party and encroaching upon the policy ideas of them. So what happens when abolish the police becomes mainstream? I'll tell you what's happening right now. There's a game of tug of war. And because the right is willing to police its side, they are getting rid of the people holding the rope at the back end. They're saying, we don't want your support. The left isn't doing the same thing. So guess who's winning the game of tug of war? But the problem is, eventually the Democrats become old and feeble, giving in to the extremists. And there you go. So what happens if Joe Biden gets elected? In my opinion, the rope gets pulled, gets jerked hard to the left. Joe Biden, they say he's a moderate. He goes, do I look like a radical socialist? No, but you look like a guy who just did a pact with Bernie Sanders, whose supporters literally just sent in a bomb threat to a police department. I don't like the idea of people negotiating with extremists. What did Donald Trump say? He said, I am not talking about the white nationalists and the neo-Nazis because they should be condemned totally. And he said that years ago. Did Joe Biden ever say the words Antifa? No. As in recent memory, as it pertains to denouncing the far left violence, absolutely not. He says the violence is bad. We got to denounce violence on both sides. That I like. I can respect that. Thank you, Joe, for saying that much. Now, would you consider denouncing the far left? Would you consider denouncing the extremists who are gaining a foothold in your party? Of course not. He wants their vote. He is willing to do whatever it takes to get the vote of those people. Was Trump? No, Trump said they should be condemned totally. Is Trump perfect? Of course not. Did Trump condemn the Q people? No, he didn't. And to be fair, I think the media definitely overhypes all of that as if everybody knows exactly what that is. Trump was asked about it and he was like, I don't know, I just know they like me, I guess. And then I think I can't remember who was asked about it. I'm not sure if it was McEnany, but somebody was asked, and they're like, it was Mike Pence. He's like, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what that is. The media is aligned with, entertaining, or just outright ignoring. Is Brian Stelter a radical far left socialist? Of course not. Is he turning a blind eye to the rising extremism? Yes. Is he hyper-focused on the one cable channel that stands opposed to the rest of them? Yeah, isn't that weird? Look, I've criticized Fox News several times. I think their polls are garbage. I think most polls are garbage, so it's not really, too much to be said. But I complained, it was like last year I was watching Fox and Friends, and they had a whole segment about how evolution wasn't real. And I'm like, what is this? This is ridiculous. And I remember Tucker Carlson did a segment about pot legalization where he came out against it. And I was like, what is Tucker saying? These are weak arguments. I got no problem calling it out when I see it going bad. The Democrats and the media are entertaining the extremists. And this is what you'll get. They mentioned Cal Anderson Park being closed. Late Tuesday night, a group of protesters returned to the park. When 3 security guards arrived, the group shouted at them to leave and followed them through the part of the park video shows. The guards, concerned for their safety, eventually left the park and do not plan to return, said a man identifying himself as the owner of the security firm. Okay, well, that's good news. I like the idea of security, but I like the idea of policing better. You know what's really funny? It's a left-wing position. I am not for privatized police. I think it's a bad idea. I am, my political views, my economic views lean slightly to the left, and they're not going to change. I do not believe in laissez-faire capitalism. I do not believe in privatizing a privatized police force. In fact, I would be a fan of a public option competing with the private sector, with private sector healthcare, much like we have private security firms competing with the police in a sense. And much like we have FedEx and UPS competing with the post office. I like the idea because ideally, and it doesn't always work out this way, the government program, the government service has a bit of accountability. And the private service is competition for both. So if the USPS starts failing, people will choose FedEx, and that makes sure the government program at least holds certain standards. It's not perfect. I do think we need to make sure we have better better procedures to review what's going on with a lot of these services that the government does provide. However, I lean slightly away from the government being in the business of providing services, but I am still slightly on the left. So I like the idea of a police force and a fire department. You know why? Neutral arbiters. They're not perfect. There's a big story that's going around about how journalists were getting these police union cards and how the police unions give them to friends and family members. And it's like a get out of jail free card. It's not really jail. It's like get out of a ticket card. So if you do something that's like a slap on the wrist fine or penalty, like you get pulled over, they let you go. That's a common thing. It absolutely is. Sometimes cops give you a warning, but a lot of cops, well, this is debated, but there's quotas, man. You're always warned. Don't be careful driving at the end of the month because them quotas, they'll come and get you. So there are real issues, but I'll tell you what. If two people are fighting in the street, the cops are going to break it up and say, back off. What happens if I go out and I got private security guards? They're going to tell you to back off. And you're going to say, I want your name. Who are you? What's your name? They're going to laugh in your face. So the last thing I think we need are private security forces facing off with each other. Could you imagine this? Like two people going out, and each got their own private security, and then fight breaks out or whatever. It's just the stupidest thing. No, you have one police unit come out. They stop the conflict. They separate everybody. But this is what you get. This is what you get when you have a media class unwilling to confront the problem of left-wing radicalization in this country. You get bomb threats, 14,000 arrests, and a lazy media class that doesn't care to say anything about it. So I will end with one last point. The point I made very early on. How many arrests have we had of right-wing radicals? There's probably a decent amount. We've had over 14,000 arrests from people in the George Floyd riots. Think about that. I'll see you all at 4 p.m. in the next segment over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out.